Everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider with Kevin from Learning and Trading in the Stock Market on the Facebook page that he has created. And we're very happy to have Kevin on the line just to kind of discuss what happened over the weekend, the week, and discuss it over the weekend when the markets closed, and just kind of go over, what we saw and, kind of what we're looking at into next week. Neither one of us are licensed. We just have a passion for the stock market. So please don't take any of this as advice. But yeah, so Kevin, kind of how was your week of trading, and what were you kind of looking at?
How's it going, Jake? What's up, everybody? So it was a good trading week. It was a good, I don't know, probably $4,000 week this week. So I was very happy. My biggest disappointing trade was Baba.
And what kind of went wrong with Baba?
So Baba gapped down from last Friday on Tuesday. So I saw it hit support, and I was anticipating a gap fill. So I decided to buy the 155 calls. And Tuesday, yeah, I was up, 1,100, but I refused to sell just out of pure, anticipating a gap fill, which
Yep.
is technically not proper trading. That is anticipating something that doesn't have to happen. But, I went with it and stuck with it. However, it went against me, and I refused to sell because I had time. That's the one thing I like about options is I have time. I always give myself time for a move. And so I had that in my favor. On Wednesday, it opened up a little bit higher. It still didn't hit my price target. I wanted the 157 price target. So I refused to sell. And once again, I was still in the red on this trade. And then on Thursday, it looked a little weak. So it popped up a little bit, and I did sell it. I took a small loss on it, no big deal. However, Thursday into Friday, it did hit my price target and actually went higher. So,
It
was one of
ripped.
those things. That was a very disappointing trade. I should have stuck with it. I did have time on my side. I didn't. Once again, emotions got in the way. Just a lot of things, a lot of rookie mistakes. But it was definitely nice to see though that that I actually know what I'm looking at, and it was just nice to see. I was just disappointed I sold for what I made on it. So,
Yep, no, it makes sense. And the cool thing, just looking at the chart now, kind of taking it back over, the right where you bought essentially was right on the weekly SMA 20. So, the weekly SMA 20 held, and then Thursday was that massive bullish engulfing candle, and then just that massive gap up. And you can see on the chart, Kevin, I don't think you can see the chart, but from looking at the chart, this popped literally right to this trend line right here. So we had one, two, so we got one, two, and then the third touch up here was kind of a fake out, continued down. This is our fourth touch, fifth, and then now we had our sixth touch on this trend line. So this trend line is very strong. And it's going to take a lot for the price to really break through here. There is a gap below, so all of these things are kind of things to watch into next week. And the cool thing is, this is the weekly SMA. So with other charting platforms, you can't really show multiple time frames, but with TrendSpider, you're essentially mapping out the longer term time frame on the primary chart. So we're on the daily candle, and we're watching how the daily candle interacts with the longer term indicators such as the SMA 20 here. So if we add the SMA 20 daily, we can see that the price action really had no relation to the daily move, but on the weekly, this was really acting as perfect support here. So that's something to keep in mind. And really, across the board, the SMA 20 has been something to watch. So for example, on SPY, this is what we were watching last week. And we were really watching this SMA 20, and it actually was not tested Now, what's interesting is the XBI chart did test the SMA 20. So, Kevin, I'm not sure how much you use kind of different indexes to kind of see where the market's going, but one thing that I really like to look at is essentially XBI generally is going to make the move before the other broad market ETFs. So back in December 24th, Christmas Eve, when we were crashing across the markets, and we can see this on SPY, essentially, the markets, this was December 24th on SPY. There was a huge red candle, but on XBI is when we finally kind of saw a possible bottoming here with kind of that risk on button turned back on. So we had this nice doji, and this was kind of our confirmation that we could be turning around. And since then, we've moved very hard to the upside to the weekly SMA above. So definitely kind of a status quo here. If we break this, that will change. Kevin, anything you're really looking into next week? I know you like to trade kind of a smaller amount of stocks, kind of keep it a small group so you can kind of concentrate. What are you looking at next week?
I generally trade the same stuff over and over again. I know a lot of people like to look at, different things and chart around, but I trade options. I'm looking for volatility. I'm looking for price action. I want stocks that have high dollar ranges. Next week, I would look at a pullback on a Monday, probably come down, retest support. And I think with a lot of big earnings coming up this coming week, I think we're going to get a lot of momentum. If who's up first? Is Apple up first?
Honestly, I'm not sure. You probably know better than I. So let's look at Apple. Yeah, Apple. Apple's definitely looking healthy. It had a nice pop on Friday. It's kind of got that megaphone kind of resistance looking.
So here's my thought process is this. So I'm pretty bearish on Monday. I'm looking for a pullback. I want to see a pullback on Monday, and depending on if these companies report good earnings, we could continue the bull run into next week. If you look at the SPY weekly, it looks kind of bullish. Like I said, I want to see a pullback and then a nice run. And I mean, just basically anticipating, but I'm pretty bullish next week, but I do want to see a pullback.
Yeah, and we don't have the government shutdown kind of looming over us either, so that may give some new money a chance to jump back in too.
Exactly. We got Microsoft coming up next week. That daily chart's looking pretty good. It is peak and resistance right now, right around the 100 SMA, which is 107.61 currently. It did close on a red doji, so I would look for Monday for a pullback, come down, test some support, and then, like I said, we make a push.
Yeah.
I think the S&P 500 closed pretty good on the weekly. The daily looking really good. Like I said, do want to see a pullback, but overall, long term, I think we push, and I think the SPY can push to 270, 271.
Yeah, no, and that was kind of, well, it's crazy to think, back when we were trading, October-ish, November-ish, 271 was like the lower support, and now it's kind of the resistance we're talking about above. So it's just interesting to see how, these previous support levels on the upside become resistance levels to watch. So,
exactly.
On Microsoft, we've got a pretty defined wedge here on the weekly, kind of getting really tight, almost like kind of a bull flag, if you will. Kind of we got this big move up, then kind of this consolidation moving to the right. And if we break out through this wedge, we could easily possibly test new highs if everything kind of tames. And 120 is not out of the question if things really start to take off.
Right, exactly, and that's why I'm relatively bullish. We did have a gap up Friday, so those gaps have to get filled.
Yep.
When they get filled, I don't know. You could use Baba for an example. I anticipated Baba filling the gap on Tuesday, Wednesday. It never happened. it happened on a Friday.
Yep.
And my emotions took over on that trade. So it is what it is. So we have gap up. So those gaps have to get filled. When they get filled, we don't know. So we're just going to have to go day by day and see what happens. But I do want to see a pullback before I get really bullish again.
No, it makes sense. And even looking at like the Apple chart, it above kind of looks like Swiss cheese. There's so
Oh,
many gaps above. So those have to be filled to the upside as well. So kind of going back
yeah,
to your
exactly.
theory, there's a lot of gaps above too that are really kind of just hanging there and want to be filled. I think guidance on the ER is going to be an interesting thing to see kind of
It's going to be huge.
what
It's
they're
going to be huge.
seeing. And the
Um,
thing is, trade war is huge right now. If any type of trade war stuff is kind of mediated, that could also
mhm,
help a lot.
right.
Because that was a
If you
big
look at
thing.
Apple's chart, it's kind of got like a rounding bottom.
Yep, yep. Kind of got like
Um,
no, I completely agree. We had a nice uptick in volume on Friday as well.
right.
So no, this one, we're kind of seeing, and it's interesting because we did have that huge gap down from the guidance about China kind of slow down. But then
Oh,
back to your point, we filled that gap perfectly, and we've kind of consolidated here for possibly the next leg up. Obviously, anything can
exactly.
happen, but you know, sometimes the market gets ahead of itself and moves down too quickly, and that's when you have these inefficiencies in price, possibly, to kind of kick momentum back in, get buyers who are looking for value. And so I think that's really what's going on right now is, people are starting to realize stocks are getting cheap. And if things can turn around on the, economy side of things, as far as like China's slowdown, Europe's been slowing down, if the trade war can kind of figure itself out, that possibly could help things kind of start their move back up. Because we are really at a very kind of rounded bottom, as you mentioned, especially on Apple, which has been a market leader now for a while. So that would be
Right.
something to watch going into a possible kind of bigger rally.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, are
Um,
you mentioned you just do a couple stocks. What are the general stocks you're trading? You said
so
Microsoft, SPY.
yeah, I trade SPY, Microsoft. I watch Amazon. I don't trade it too much. I trade. Let's see. I trade Baba, Facebook, Apple, SQ. I do watch Baidu and I do watch Nvidia and Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really got into trading those yet. I mean, just kind of I watch their price action, just to see how they roll. But generally speaking, I'm generally trading the SPY. I mean, I literally trade the SPY 60 to 70% of my trades, if not Microsoft.
Yep. Well.
And the reason is because I trade options. I want dollars. I don't want 50-cent moves. I want dollar moves.
Yep.
So, the SPY moves what? Anywhere from $3 to $8 a day. So if I can pinpoint, um, the bottom, then I'm good. I'm going to get that move.
Yep. Well, and too, if you look at kind of the multiple stocks kind of within the same industry, you can kind of get an idea of, all right, well, Nvidia's moving and Apple hasn't moved yet, or like, stuff like that, where you can kind of see if there's inefficiencies in a different stock based on what, the rest of the industry is doing. So, I like that. I like that model. With just looking at the SQ chart real quick, man, SQ recently just broke out of this huge wedge. And I mean, buyers have been in control the rest of the second half of the week last week, and I
But
mean,
yeah, this thing is
I mean, if this thing keeps moving, the next area, a huge channel resistance above, which I just put an alert on, is at like $90. So if the market really starts to move, man, this thing could rip. So definitely another
uh,
one.
I'm 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 liking SQ a lot. I am looking for a pullback because it did gap. It opened yesterday at 74.90 and it ripped all the way to 78.15. I mean, I would like to see some kind of gap fill,
Yep.
but I mean, like I said, I'm anticipating Monday. You know, Monday's a big day for me. I want to see some gaps get filled before, we start making our move higher. If we don't fill gaps on Monday, I'm going to be a little nervous for earnings because
Yep.
those gaps have to get filled. If we don't fill on Monday and Apple and Microsoft report bad earnings, then those gaps will get filled.
Yep.
So I'm just hoping, really hoping Monday's, key element for me. It's a very important day for me.
Yeah, good. And I'm just looking at the chart on SQ. The MACD on the weekly looks like it's about to cross here as well. Along with the vortex indicator, the red is about to cross below the blue. The red is the VI
Yeah.
negative, blue is VI positive. And so if that occurs, that's sometimes, a confirmation of further upside. So, there's a couple ways to look at this. Apple could have easily lowered their guidance so they can blow it out of the water, when they do report, or they're actually sincerely worried about, what's going to be coming on the earnings. So I think, like you said, earnings are huge, and we'll just have to kind of see how it goes and adjust from there.
Right. Yeah.
So.
I mean, just take it day by day. I know there's gaps that have to get filled. If they don't fill, they're gonna have to fill eventually. It's my opinion, anyways.
I'd say it's well over 50% of gaps fill. I mean, it's up there. So there's a better chance of a gap filling than not, from kind of my experience.
Yeah, and the weekly charts look really healthy on the SPY, SQ, Apple, Microsoft. The weeklies look really nice.
Yep. No,
So,
we've had now 5 weeks in a row of green, so we have
I know.
really. That's the only thing that kind of scares me is, the more consecutive green or red weeks or days in a row,
Right.
likely the more consecutive to the opposite is what's gonna happen after. So yeah, we're in our 5th week. We do kind of have a little bit of a hanging man, if you will, on the weekly. But I mean, if we look back in time, hanging mans occur all the time in the market, and then they can easily just continue to push up. Here's an example here where we had this hanging man, huge move up. So we're in a very interesting place. If we can really just get a shutdown deal that lasts more than 3 weeks, I think we could really get some momentum. And really, in order for the market to move up, you need new money. You can't just have the same participants, thinking that they're just going to continue to push the market up. In order to really get a market move to the next level and change the status quo, you really need that new money to come in. And so, if the government shutdown can fix itself and kind of get sorted out, and we get back to kind of a normal life here, that could really bring in some new money. But I think I agree with you that, we could have that pullback maybe down around 260, 261, which would be the previous weekly channel support. Now it's resistance. It was support, it was resistance, and now it could be support again. So
exactly, and that's what I want to see. So I mean,
that would be healthy.
What I want to see.
That would, it's not bad to have pullbacks. It's just from a supply and demand perspective, if you can't just keep overheating. Some people have to take profits. You have to kind of have a next base of buyers coming in to kind of create that next support level. So it's always good to have a pullback. So that's kind of what I think I'll be looking for as well. Just from a general kind of perspective on the vortex indicator on the SPY, the vortex indicator is kind of in a position where we have seen, some reversals. Now, this is not necessarily the input that I think I'd use. I'd probably change the input on the vortex indicator maybe to let's say 8, just to kind of make it a little more sensitive. And even here, this gives us a little better signal. Last time we crossed the vortex indicator back in May of 2018, we had a pretty big move up until, early in the year in 2018. So once the vortex crossed blue through red, we had a very big move down. And so with the vortex indicator red, converging towards the blue again, and the MACD finally starting to possibly cross, which it has not crossed to the upside literally since we had the big move down in October, that could be a big status quo kind of technical move there, and really kind of set the tone for going into summer.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Yep.
but it's the market. Anything can happen, guys. These are just our opinions. Please don't take this as advice. And Kevin, I want to thank you so much for getting on and chatting, and I hope we can do this more often. And thank you so
Yeah,
much for
definitely.
continuing to kind of help promote and support our TrendSpider platform. And
Oh, anytime, anytime.
Kevin does have a coupon code, so if you're interested, you can just use his coupon code to try this out. And thanks so much, everyone, for listening in. And thank you, Kevin. And we are excited to see what happens next week.
Yes, take care. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Hey, thanks, man. Have a good one. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.